The fluorescent lights of the hospital waiting room buzzed like dying insects, casting a harsh glow on faces etched with worry. Marcus Ashford sat alone in the corner, his $1,000 suit wrinkled, his tie loosened, staring at the untouched coffee growing cold in his hands. At 42, he had everything money could buy: penthouse apartments, luxury cars, a company worth hundreds of millions, yet he'd never felt more empty than he did in that moment. He'd come to the emergency room 3 hours ago with chest pains that turned out to be nothing more than stress and exhaustion. The doctor had prescribed rest, maybe therapy, definitely a change in lifestyle. But as Marcus prepared to leave, something stopped him. A sound. Soft, broken, desperate. The whisper of a child trying to be brave when her world was falling apart. Across the waiting room, a little girl no more than 7 years old knelt beside a row of plastic chairs, her tiny hands clasped together, eyes squeezed shut. Her clothes were worn but clean, her dark hair pulled back in a lopsided ponytail. Tears streamed down her cheeks as her lips moved in silent prayer. Marcus watched, frozen, as she opened her eyes and looked directly at him. Their gazes locked, and in that instant, something shifted inside his carefully constructed walls. The girl stood up, wiping her face with the back of her hand, and walked straight toward him. Marcus's first instinct was to look away, to leave, to retreat into the safe cocoon of his isolated existence. But he couldn't. Something about her reminded him of someone he'd lost long ago. "Mister," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Do you know how to talk to God? I've been asking and asking, but I don't think he hears me." She swallowed hard, her small body shaking. "Please don't let my mom die. Please. She's all I have." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He set down his coffee cup, his hands suddenly unsteady. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma," she said softly. "Emma Rodriguez. My mama's name is Sophia. She collapsed at work today. They said something about her heart and kidneys, and that she needs an operation, but..." Her voice broke. "We don't have insurance. We don't have money. And the lady at the desk said they can't do the surgery without a deposit." Marcus felt something crack open inside his chest, something that had been sealed shut for years. 20 years ago, he'd been that child, poor, scared, watching his own mother die in a hospital because they couldn't afford the treatment she needed. He'd built his fortune on the ashes of that pain, promising himself he'd never be helpless again. But somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten what it was like to feel anything at all. "How much?" Marcus heard himself ask. Emma's eyes widened. $75,000. "But it's okay, I shouldn't have bothered you. I thought maybe you looked like someone who knew how to pray better than me." Marcus stood up, his decision made in a heartbeat. "Take me to your mother." What happened next would become the talk of St. Mary's Hospital for years to come. Marcus Ashford, the notoriously reclusive CEO who rarely gave interviews and never did charity work, marched up to the billing department with little Emma's hand in his. He pulled out his black card and said 6 words that made the clerk's jaw drop: "Whatever she needs." No limit. But Marcus didn't stop there. As he learned more about Sophia Rodriguez, a single mother who worked 2 jobs to support her daughter, who'd ignored her own health problems because she couldn't afford to take time off, something awakened in him. He called his company's best corporate lawyer and had him draft documents on the spot. He arranged for the top cardiac surgeon in the state to fly in immediately. He personally sat with Emma in the children's waiting area, distracting her with stories and terrible jokes while her mother underwent a 6-hour emergency surgery. "Why are you doing this?" Emma asked at one point, her head resting against his shoulder, exhaustion finally overtaking her fear. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "When I was about your age, I sat in a hospital just like this one. My mom was sick, and I prayed just like you did. But nobody came to help us. She died 3 days later." He felt tears in his eyes for the first time in 2 decades. "I promised myself I'd never be poor again, that I'd never be powerless again. But I forgot the most important promise, that if I ever had the chance, I'd be the person who shows up. I'd be the answer to someone else's prayer." Emma looked up at him with wise eyes far too old for her young face. "Your mom would be proud of you tonight. The surgery was successful. Sophia Rodriguez's life was saved." And over the following weeks, as she recovered, Marcus found himself doing something he'd never done before: he kept showing up. He visited Sophia and Emma, bringing books and groceries. He discovered that Sophia had a brilliant mind for business but had never finished college. He arranged for a full scholarship and offered her a position at his company once she completed her degree. He set up a trust fund for Emma's education. But more importantly, Marcus began to change. He started a foundation in his late mother's name, dedicated to helping families afford medical care. He spent less time in his lonely penthouse and more time volunteering at the hospital. He reconnected with old friends he'd pushed away and even started therapy to address the grief and guilt he'd carried for so long. 6 months later, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, Marcus stood in a small community park watching Emma play soccer with other kids from the neighborhood. Sophia sat beside him on the bench, healthy and vibrant, her face glowing with gratitude and something else, friendship, genuine and pure. "You know," Sophia said softly, "Emma still thinks you're an angel. I've tried to explain that you're just a very kind man, but she insists." Marcus laughed, the sound coming easier now. "I'm no angel. I'm just someone who finally remembered what it means to be human." He paused, watching Emma score a goal and celebrate with her teammates. "She saved my life that night, you know. I was so lost, so disconnected from everything real. I had all the money in the world, but I'd forgotten how to live." Sophia reached over and squeezed his hand. "Funny how that works. You saved her mother's life, and she saved your soul." As the sun set over the park, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Marcus reflected on how one whispered prayer from a desperate child had transformed everything. He'd learned that true wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts or stock portfolios. It was measured in moments like these, in the laughter of a child who still had her mother, in the second chance given to a woman who'd never caught a break, in the redemption of a lonely man who'd finally found his purpose. Emma ran over, breathless and beaming. "Marcus, did you see my goal?" "I saw it, champion. You were amazing." She threw her arms around him in a fierce hug. "I love you," she said simply, as only a child can, without hesitation, without agenda, without fear. Marcus hugged her back, his eyes stinging with happy tears. "I love you too, kiddo." In that moment, surrounded by the sound of children playing and the warmth of genuine human connection, Marcus Ashford finally understood what his mother would have wanted for him all along. Not wealth, not revenge against a cruel world, but this, the courage to keep his heart open, the wisdom to use his blessings to lift others, and the grace to accept love when it was offered. Sometimes the most unbelievable miracles aren't grand gestures but simple acts of showing up when someone needs you most. And sometimes, in saving others, we discover the path to saving ourselves.